and Demi was working for UA at the time, and they struck up a friendship. And over the years, Gary would tell me numerous stories. He once the child acting thing didn't quite work out, he got into the waterbed business. The waterbed thing didn't really work out, and then he told me about the gas crisis. Suddenly when you have a story where the Arab-Israeli war is affecting a 16-year-old in the valley in his waterbed business, like you know you've got a good story. Like you latch onto those things and you hold on to them. And he also worked for Joel Wax, his campaign for mayor, and did in fact overhear that pinball was going to be legal in Los Angeles County and was trying to get in the ground floor. So all of those details are, more or less accurate to Gary's escapades as like a very precocious 15, 16, 17-year-old.
Yeah. Was this an idea? I mean, I know that you were working on a different script.
That's right.
When I saw you, and then I heard that you had switched to this.
Mm-hmm.
Was this an idea that had been percolating for a long time, or?
It was for many years. About 20 years ago, I first had the basic premise of this. I'd seen. I went walking by this junior high school in my neighborhood, going for a walk one day, and it was picture day. I saw all these kids out on the blacktop, and there was this very precocious young kid desperately trying to get a date or phone number or whatever he was doing. I mean, I saw it from a great distance, but he was just after this girl, I thought. I kind of saw a great premise in that, a great screwball premise. What happens if this girl, against all of her better judgments, actually turns up? That's a great premise, and it would be, I thought it would be like that John Cassavetes movie Gloria, with the little Puerto Rican boys always screaming, and you at Jenna Rollins, and but kind of within the dynamics of this thriller, you had this great relationship. They were like an old married couple. So I had that many, many years ago, and it had no place to go. That just sort of ended there. And then somewhere between Gary's stories and this one, and meeting Alana, and working with Alana, I had these three things that just sort of seemed like ready to be born, ready to come out. And it just was, it was impossible to not write it or to stop writing it once I started.
I mean, I gather it feels like your loosest movie. But I gather that it's actually that that you followed the script religiously. I mean, that in some ways it was one of your most structured screenplays.
Yeah, I think that's the irony. I think I've been realizing this and talking about it, that to get something to feel like this loose, it's that joke that you realize, loose does not mean having no idea what you're doing at all. Actually, loose requires this intricate planning and a great structure to give you this kind of feeling of skipping a stone along the water that just keeps moving forward. The other thing is that it would be very dangerous to create a situation for young actors to be forced into improvising or something like that. Mm-hmm. To have a very strong structure and a very strong script would be a great foundation to start. If they ended up being good at improvising or filling something in, then great, but we didn't need it. Alana was great at improvising. Cooper liked it. He didn't take to it too much. He would have preferred to stick to the script.
Right.
So somewhere between the two they found it, but having the foundation was smart.
Yeah.
And also too, working at the time that we were working, there was no, you didn't, there's 10-hour days when you shoot with kids, and with COVID as well, there was a mission to accomplish, and that was to shoot very strict and go in and get the scene and go home and come back again the next day.
Well, it must have been extraordinary. I mean, this entire film was shot before there was any vaccine,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know quite how you pulled it off, because it's a big cast. There's a lot of people on those sets.
Well, the majority of the time, we personally knew everybody who was in the movie, or at least knew them and knew their families. So we were really creating a life raft that was very, very large. There were times at the Teenage Fair or the Joel Wax office when we had to employ background actors to help us. But it was testing. That was the thing that made it possible, testing 3 times a week and just being very strict. And everybody, the mood was so, we all had this mission to accomplish, and we were also happy to see each other again.
Yeah, and
That no one wanted to go blow that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think the land of unintended consequences was that for all these young actors, they were actually seeing how you should make a film. You know, there's no end to the stories of young actors that they get distracted on the weekends, or they're on their, you know, they get busy at night and they stay out too late, stuff like that. This was like that. And it was exactly how you should make a film. I mean, you only make it for 60 days. You've got to be able to sort of corral yourself and focus and concentrate.
Yeah.
So the level of concentration was very high on everybody's part.
Mm. It was a 60-day shoot?
Yeah, 65, I think we ended up doing, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. One of the things I love about the movie is how you never quite, it shoots off in these wonderful tangents that you don't expect, and these red herrings, like his getting arrested.
Yeah.
Which is then, you know, it happens and then it's over and it's never alluded to again.
Yeah.
Or the guy outside the wax office
Mm-hmm.
stalking. I wonder, did you have Nashville in mind? Was that a little homage?
No, I didn't,
Yeah.
because I'll tell you what I had to do very carefully there was you realize that you have Nashville or Taxi Driver as these touchstones where something really bad does happen.
Right.
And you have to be, you know, you're leading an audience to believe that there's a threat, because there is a threat, but you trying to navigate what you know is that ultimately, I don't want to say a sort of even more sinister, but it's more slow motion. It's not this big violent event, but it's a very slow motion, torturous situation that Joel finds himself in, not being able to behave as himself, not being able to be in public, and that it's a soft landing. It's not some big shootout or something like that that kind of comes to end the film, but something more melancholy, you know, no less tragic, but just more melancholy. So yeah, I was aware that you could potentially guide an audience towards expecting something, but you have to do it carefully. And hopefully, though, that they go along for the ride with you, they can feel something else.
Can you talk a little bit about your music choices?
Sure.
Because they're not the obvious ones. You know?
Right. Well, you know, I mean, listen, the list is long of films that take place in the 70s and great
Yeah.
music that goes along with it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Boogie Nights is a similar thing. That you have songs of the period helping to tell your story. But the great thing about this music is that for as many hits as there are, there's like 10 behind them that maybe weren't hits or that aren't as well known. So I was just sort of picked out from the library of stuff that I've had over the years, and then you just put that radio on and hope for a gem to come along that you've never heard before. And from time to time you get lucky and you hear something, or you use the Billboard 100 book that they publish, you know, from each year, and you go in and you dig around and you see so many songs that you've never even heard of, find them and see if they'll work. But I think the nice thing too is that you can free yourself up and you can use a Nina Simone song like The July Tree to sort of set the table. And I mean, it's hard one to justify because you're not going to hear July Tree on a high school playground, a high school hall, a locker room or something like that in 1973. But it sets a nice tone for the film, and you just sort of move the goalposts as you need it to use what's needed, and then to use Johnny at the beginning, Johnny Greenwood score, just to use that at the very beginning, and then use it at the end. That was sort of just the plan there.
Yeah. Johnny Greenwood is everywhere these days. Every other movie I see has a Johnny Greenwood
That's
score.
right.
I told him very early on that that I didn't need much music, so he went and took 2 other jobs.
I'm getting a signal that I'm afraid we are running out on our last. Any last words you'd like to share with the audience?
I thank you for coming on a Sunday night. This is amazing to see you guys all here. I really appreciate it. Thank you. That was too short. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.